Excited you're tuning in for yet another episode of the Mindset Today podcast. With this podcast, we inspire people to control their mindset and know the tips and tricks on how we can make sure that we are controlling the mind and the mind is not controlling us. Hi there, Stephanie here. Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Today podcast. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper than only our mindset. We're going to talk about our brain. I am an NLP coach. This means neuro-linguistic programming. And besides that, I am studying a lot about neuroscience. This is really to completely understand how a human being works, because we can understand our mind and we can understand how we can create a new mindset or change our mindset, etc., etc. But I believe that real understanding really comes from all the little details on how our brain works and how our body works. Because if we understand fully how everything works, we are able to also understand things better, on how to put things in practice, on why things are like this, etc., etc. So that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Our brain, our body, how it works together, and how we can control it. So let's dive in a little bit on the first topic, and that is actually understanding and feeling the trigger. So what happens in the moment that you are getting upset, you are getting angry, you are getting sad, or you are getting happy, or whatever feeling might happen? Your body knows this before your brain. So your body knows exactly how you're going to be feeling before actually your brain or so your mind understand this. This has a 90-second window. So in this 90-second window, you are able to create a different reaction. But the trick is you need to know what the trigger is. When you, for example, get angry or upset or whatsoever, something in your body will start reacting on it. So, for example, this could be you maybe get a itchy neck, or maybe your fingers begin to tingle, or maybe you get a little bit of a headache, or maybe you get like a very weird feeling in your stomach, or maybe whatsoever. But with everyone, it's different. But we all do have a trigger before we respond the way we respond. So notice it a little bit with yourself when you're angry. What do you feel in your body? Because this 90-second window is very important. So something is happening, your body is already responding, so it's triggering you. So something in your body will already give you the sign, okay, hey, this is happening. But as long as we're not focused on that, if we don't know it, then of course that's why we don't really make the think of, well, we don't really make the shift of, okay, wait, I need to take control right now, because otherwise I'm going to respond the way I do not want to respond. So when you feel the trigger, stop and change the way you're going to react on it. And we have 90 seconds for this. So you get triggered, you feel it, and your normal response probably would be something like, if you get triggered negatively, something that you will be angry, or you're going to really like shout at the person. But if you feel the trigger, like, oh, this is my trigger when I'm getting angry or when I'm getting frustrated, you can say to yourself, okay, let's breathe in and breathe out. This is what happened, okay, but I don't want to react the way I'm normally responding. And then you change the way you're going to respond. Our brain controls our abilities to think, talk, feel, see, hear, remember things, walk, and everything. It's everything. It controls our breathing. It's like our motor of our body. So therefore, when you feel the trigger in your body, you are able to respond to it, because your body, as I said before, feels it before it arrives into the motor, before it arrives into the brain, and then your reaction starts. And this is a tough one. It's difficult to feel your trigger, to understand your trigger. But if you are focused on this, the next time you feel angry, you feel sad, or you feel a certain way, and if you, for example, respond a certain way when you feel like that, and you don't like the way you respond, just have a look. Like, how did I feel? What did I notice differently in my body? For example, I notice when my stomach just like going a little bit weird. It has like weird feelings in my stomach. I get a little bit of like a pressure on my neck, and then I'm really like, okay, wait, this is my trigger when I become frustrated, when I become a little bit of angry, and then normally I'm just saying things without even thinking. So now I know this trigger, and then I know, I feel it in my stomach, I feel the pressure on my neck, and I'm like, okay, wait, I need to take a minute, and I'm gonna change my reaction. This is what happened, so I'm reflecting. This is what happened. I'm not happy with this. Normally I would respond like this, but hey, I'm going to respond like this. And that is exactly how you need to do it. And it's difficult. It takes time, especially to figure out your trigger, to really see what is happening. And it takes time. But the moment you understand your triggers and you know the triggers that are attached to the feelings that you want to control, you actually want to control the outcome, then it becomes much easier. So for example, I was in a car accident not long ago, and at that moment, of course, I was so shocked, I was so scary, and I was just really like, oh, I was frustrated, and everything was happening, and I couldn't control myself at that moment, because of course everything could have happened. It could be so worse, and I'm so lucky. If you see my car is dead. It's like all folded up together. It's like nothing left of it, but I'm okay. And at that moment I was shocked, and I was screaming, and I was yelling, and I was crying, and I was afraid. But the moment when I saw the other girl, and I saw like, okay, wait, I'm also really frustrated right now, but it's not her fault. She didn't do this on purpose, and she should have really pushed the brake a little bit harder, and she probably wasn't watching that well on the road. But hey, this isn't her fault. So I didn't become angry at her. I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at her because of course it's like, hey, watch the road now, because of you my car is gone, and blah 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 blah. But at that moment I felt, even in this period of time, the shock that I had, I felt my trigger of that I'm angry, but I don't want to respond angry because that girl is in a shock also. This is not what she wanted to do. So I was able to control myself and go to her, and she said, I'm so sorry, I thought you were driving, but I thought I didn't see it was traffic and that you were already stopping. I thought it was slow driving. And she was in such a panic mood, and she was very young. And I said, no worries, we're all okay, and this is not what you wanted to do. It's okay, just calm down. And that is just because I felt my trigger. And that is this work. I've worked on that for a very, very long time, like months, before I really could take control of my triggers. So that otherwise, like the old Stephanie, I would say it like that, she would have been angry. She would have said to the girl, yeah, you're probably on your phone. And I have said this to friends when I became very, very angry that it took so long with the insurance, like almost 5 weeks to figure things out and to get the money and things like that. But of course I said it to my friends, but at that moment I could control myself. And that is exactly what you can do with everything. And of course there will be moments that you can't control yourself, that this 90-second windows is just like you don't feel the trigger, or you don't put your focus on the trigger, or you just in that 90 seconds you're so angry and you just cannot take control over it. Of course it can happen, but if you train to understand your triggers, if you train yourself on this, you are able to take control of this 90 seconds. Remember this, your body feels how you're going to react 90 seconds before your brain does. And something else that is super important actually to understand with your brain is that we are in so much control of our brain, actually more than we know. And that is why NLP is so, for me, super life-changing, because you can really understand the language of your brain. So, for example, you have a brain that is divided into two halves, left and right. We all know that. The left half controls the right side of the body, and then the right side controls the left side of the body. So that's something that's always, for me, was really interesting. That the left side controls the right, and the right side controls the left. And then each half has 4 sections. So those are different lobes. I'm not going to say all those names, but the most important lobe for me is what I found most important and most, it's actually the lobe that is, it's not really most important for me, but I work with this a lot in NLP, and or my colleagues, of course, also. And in neuroscience, it's also the lobe we're talking about mostly. It's the frontal lobe. And each lobe controls specific functions. But the frontal lobe controls really the personality, the decision making, the reasoning. And that is something that, of course, when we're changing our mindset and everything, like personality, decision making, reasoning, that's really important to change your mindset. That's why I said, for me, this is the most important lobe, as I work mostly with this part. But then, of course, you have also the other lobes that controls the speech, the sense of smell, memory, so everything is super important. The frontal lobe, as it controls the personality, decision making, and the reasoning, is the one that, when we're changing our mindset, we need to understand a little bit more. And the frontal lobe is important because it's actually developing until we are 25 to 30 years old. Imagine this, that when you are 26, 25, 24, or even when you're 29, your brain, your frontal lobe, and it's really like the front part of your brain. So let's say just behind your forehead, there's the frontal lobe. It's developing itself until we're 25 to 30 years old. So around that age, 24, 25, 29, 28, 27, it's still developing, and therefore it's so important that you trigger your brain constantly. Because you can, with the growth mindset, you can learn everything. And until 30 years old, you can learn a lot and you absorb it quicker. But it doesn't mean that then when it's developed after 30 years old, that you don't develop anything new anymore in your brain. It keeps on developing. But the frontal lobe is in its biggest development from 25 to 30 years old until 25 to 30 years old. After that time, it doesn't mean that now your brain just stays how it is and you can't develop it more, because it is. Doesn't matter which age you are, doesn't matter what happened to you, you can always trigger your brain to be more efficient, to be more active, to memorize things better, to learn new things, to learn new abilities and things like that. So that's also why there's a neuropsychologist in Holland, in the Netherlands, that I really follow a lot. Erik Schrader is his name, and he's a professor on neuroscience. And he also says, when he goes, for example, to the elderly homes, when people over there are eating like yogurts or things like that, something that they don't need to chew, this is actually pretty bad for our brain, because our brain wants to work, our brain wants to be triggered. And we trigger our brain if we eat something that we really need to chew on it, if we play games, if we talk with other people, if we do something new each day. That is how we trigger our brain. So that is also why in elderly homes it's so important that those people there keep getting triggered. even if they have Alzheimer or what kind of diseases we can have in our illnesses we can have in our brain, because we can keep on developing our brain to get better and better. And this is exactly why I'm telling you that today, because I want you to understand how much power you have to get a brain fully triggered, working amazingly, etc. Because if you don't do a lot, like you don't read, you don't do new things every day, you don't take enough breaks for your brain, etc., your brain just goes slower. But if you keep on triggering it, if you do new things, etc., you really make sure your brain stays active, sees new things, etc. So the theory of our brain is that people are more left-brained or right-brained. What they mean with this is that one side of your brain is always more dominant than the other one. So probably you're always a little bit of both, but there's always one that you are more, that you just like going a little bit more towards to. So for example, we have one part of our brain, so the left part, that's more logical, verbal, digital, math, it's systematic, etc. Then we have our right brain, our right part, that is really art, music, colors, creative, and everything like that. So for example, I am a little bit of both, as everyone, but I tend to go a little bit more to the left one because I'm a bit more logical thinking. I'm very systematic. Of course, I'm a time management coach, so I'm very into systems and everything orderly. So I'm definitely more focused on the left brain. But I also really love art. I love music. I love emotions, being creative, colors. So I do also lean a little bit to the right. So what are you? Are you more left-brained? Are you more right-brained? You've both. Everyone is a mix of everything. But we tend to go a little bit more to one side. So think about it. What are you? To which sides are you more? And this is something important to think about. Why? Because if you are more left-brained, you can trigger your brain to do something that's on the right brain. And the other way around, if you are more right-brained, you can do something on the left brains to really trigger your mind. So for example, if I would go paint a picture, or if I would try to make some music, or just be super creative, that would be something that really is going to trigger my brain, because that is not normally what I do. But if I would try out a new system or search for a new system, of course this is new. This is not something that I know already, but it is more or less the same thing that I'm always doing. So it just triggers my brain a little bit. But if I do something completely different, so that is on the other side of my brain, it triggers my brain more. So therefore it's also for you very important to just have a look. What side is more dominant in your brain? And when you notice, do something completely different. Try it out. Like I tried to do more coloring, and it's actually, or to do some painting, and it's actually very enlightening. First it was funny because I really suck at it, so it's also something that I really need to practice more. But it's also, you open up your mind on another way. So this definitely helps you when creating and changing your mindset. Therefore, also the 90-second window that I explained to you all the way in the beginning, that the trigger comes first in your body, then it takes 90 seconds before it goes to your brain and you are going to start to react, is important to understand. It's important to know. So with these things that we've talked about today, you understand a little bit more how you can really take control over your mind and change your mindset to the mindset you would like to have. So go ahead, figure out what is the trigger in your body. what is triggering your body, what part, what's happening when you're going to respond normally the way you do not like to respond. Like then you're being angry, you're going to yell at people whatsoever. Recognize the trigger and understand a little bit on how you can trigger your brain, on how to keep it active and active and active. And both these things are important to keep your brain healthy, active, which helps you to have it easier when changing your mindset and really taking control over your mind. So you got this. Figure out your triggers and see how you can trigger your brain. Thank you for tuning in today, and remember, we will be launching a new episode every Wednesday. And don't forget to sign up to receive more tips and tricks. You can find it in the show notes below, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.